This is not psychotherapy. Dr. Wills does not have a provider-patient relationship with this guest. These are just two people talking about emotions.
Welcome to Give a Actually with your host, Dr. Alex Wills. Welcome to Give a Fuck Actually. Today my guest is Tara Garrison. Thanks for coming on, Tara.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
She was so kind to have me on her podcast, and so check hers out. I'm going to read a brief intro, and then she can share with us anything else going on. Tara Garrison is the founder of Hire, a health and life coaching company that offers training, nutrition, mindset, and biohacking coaching. She has helped many celebrities, professional athletes, and top executives optimize their health. Tara is the author of Short-Term Keto, host of the Inside Out Health podcast, creator of Hire Retreats, and producer of the Coach Tara app.
Yep.
Anything else that you wanted to let the folks know?
I've got 4 kids. I've been on one crazy journey in this life, going from many extremes. I grew up in poverty, a mentally ill mom who also loved me deeply, very complex childhood, a lot of hard things in childhood, all the way to, oh man, leaving a major religion, going through divorce with 4 kids, changing my entire life, changing my health. I used to be over figuring that out, then going on a huge emotional healing journey, which led me into the mindset coaching work that I do today. So I mean, one thing I'm grateful for in my life is that I've been through, I feel like, a lot of shared hard experiences, like a lot of common hard experiences, you know, and my own desire, I have a very curious mind, and I believe that everything can always be solved or improved, and I'm willing to look inside myself. I'm willing to ask for help. And I'm grateful for that, because it's like, I mean, I would do it anyway, but it definitely is very rewarding to be able to have an outlet in what I do for a living, to be able to share that with others. And if it helps, great. If not, great. But you know, that's kind of my life in a nutshell. It's been a wild journey, as everyone's has.
Well, I really love what you're doing, and wow, that's quite a story of where you came from and where you are now. A lot of emotions there, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a journey. I still do work on it. I just had a big session yesterday with a coach. I don't know what you would call her, subconscious mind coach. It's kind of like therapy, but yeah. But I look at it all with so much gratitude. You know, I think that even the things that we think like hurt us in our lives, they're teaching us so much. They're teaching us empathy. They're teaching us what pain feels like. They're teaching us like the depth of our emotions, you know, and an opportunity to explore deeper sides of ourselves. So yeah.
Absolutely. And for the listeners out there that don't know, in this podcast, it's a bit of an experiment. We are going to sort of look at some negative, painful emotions or scary emotions, the emotions that most of us might just want to get rid of. And instead, we're going to be curious about them and see how they might actually be helping us out. So I don't know if anything kind of comes to mind for you of something that might be going on recently or in the past. Really, we can kind of go wherever your emotions take us.
Well, I guess I'll be really vulnerable because I'm like right in process of something right now. So let's do it.
Sounds good.
So for me, one of my core patterns that I've really had to work on in life is just codependency, people pleasing. You know, it was really, really deep as a kid. I think if anyone was raised with a pretty intensely mentally ill parent that was their only parent at home, there are a lot of like coping mechanisms you pick up, and one of them is like, just don't rock the boat, just don't say anything, and then things will be better. You just do what they want you to do, and then like you can avoid all this chaos. And so the codependency, people pleasing stuff was really intense in me, and you know, done a lot of work, but definitely I think the more work you do, the more you realize those things are going to come up, you know, and they're going to be in little sneaky ways that you didn't realize. So for me, being really vulnerable, I just had to break things off in a dating relationship yesterday that I've been in for a couple of months. And I found this is what I was working on with my coach yesterday, was just this in my emotional body still. Like my cognitive mind knows differently, but my emotional body obviously doesn't. Just these codependent feelings of, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to hurt him. His feelings are my responsibility, even though I know that's not true. it's in the emotional body, right? And so really having to work through that. I actually used some of your processes or just yesterday as this just happened yesterday. Okay. So I called him, we talked, he was very kind about it. That was fine. But like, I just sat there and just felt all my feelings after. And I was like, what are you feeling right now? And at first I said sad. And then I was like, no, you don't feel sad, right? That's not what you're feeling. You think you should feel sad. What you feel right now is scared, right? I felt scared and I felt guilty. And I was like, oh, so I went into some deep inner child processes. And I think also like my mom being mentally ill would just kind of check out a lot. And it was just a single mom, 5 kids. Can you imagine having schizophrenia and going to school and working and you've got 5 kids and it's all you? Like, holy smokes.
Sounds impossible.
Yeah. So she would check out a lot. And my oldest brother was kind of like left in charge a lot and he was brutal to me. Right. So that was even more, my sister, she's just above me in age. She says all the time, she's like, yeah, you were like literally like you had a literal target on your back. Like he just took all of his pain and everything out on you, and so for me, I think it's also pattern in that, like that male, like, it's like, I don't want him to be mad at me. And it was crazy because it's like my cognitive adult mind knows it's like, he's not even mad at you. He was very respectful, super understanding, but that in that emotional body, I could still feel, I was like, I'm scared to upset him. I was scared that I would make him mad. I could feel it. So I had a big old talk with the inner child and I just heard her. I was just like, it's okay that you feel scared. I hear you that you feel scared. That's it,
yeah.
For me. So anyway, that's an emotion, I guess, is fear and guilt. Yeah. Guilt. And then, it's, I'm sure you work with this constantly, but it's so interesting to observe how your conscious mind can know something and then your emotional body does not at all. It's like, and being with it and being kind with it. It's to me, that has been the ticket to really being able to process those things. It's like allowing myself to feel. It's like, I'm not going to shame myself for feeling scared. I'm actually going to hear myself and feel it and like, just be with it, so.
That was a big epiphany for me to realize that emotions just sort of happen to us. I think I had this belief that I needed to be able to explain it or understand it, or I was somehow creating these emotions myself with my thoughts. And I like that concept of the emotional body. And I'm really pleased. I can't be happier that, the book is actually doing something for you. And of course, you're talking about step 2, which is to just name those emotions, name the fuck. And it's just so powerful because you don't have to know why. You don't have to have any kind of a story. You just are basically noticing what's there. Like, I feel very scared for whatever reason. I feel this emotion of guilt going on. And a little bit deeper, there's also the fear of another emotion, which is his anger. What if he's mad at me? And what emotions would come up for you if he was just floridly angry at you?
Yeah, that's interesting because instead of, fear would be present, but I think also a reciprocal anger is what it's like, you shouldn't be mad at me. I imagine that's probably where I would go, or even numbness, just trying to avoid. I'm sure that would probably come in as well.
Yeah. So both of those that you mentioned, interestingly enough, are kind of what I put under the category of those shield emotions.
Yeah.
And by the way, I apologize. My voice is like super raspy. I was having a little bit of a cold going on, but I think I'm going to make it through.
Yeah, you're doing great.
But yeah, you said that you would become angry back, and then you'd also maybe become numb. And both of those I'd put into the category of the shield emotion, right?
Yeah.
Because anger is a very easy emotion to get in touch with because nobody's going to fuck with you when you're angry.
Right.
You look like you're going to kill somebody. So people are like, okay, I'll back off.
Right.
And then numb is also kind of an effective shield emotion because you're just you're there and like nothing can touch you. And nobody really bothers you because you're just kind of existing and you're not bothering anybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that always makes me super curious. What do you think are underneath those two emotions for you? if he was like angry and he said like hurtful things or whatever it was, like what other hurtful emotions do you think might happen?
Mm. I think sadness would, is underneath that, but it's like a self-inflicted, like I got like an image of like taking those angry words or whatever and just like stabbing myself right with them, like just taking them right in and just, I am horrible. How could I do this to him? So maybe self-blame. I'm trying to think what else, if he had really gotten like that underneath anger and numbness. Yeah, I'd say guilt is still there, like self-imposed blame, guilt, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are some of the most common emotions that we can get very afraid of. Guilt and shame. I don't know if shame would also be on your list.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. For sure.
And those emotions can be kind of like this hot fireball that's very, very painful. And it's interesting you use the term self-blame. So there's already kind of a story wrapped up in it, which is I don't just feel guilt. I don't just feel shame, but it's about me. There's something about that emotion means that there might be something wrong with who I really am.
Right. Right. Yep. And I was feeling that. And it was interesting as I was processing it yesterday, because I kept noticing this desire to be like, it's okay. And I was like, no, it's not. Wait, hold on. No, that's like totally invalidating. It's not okay. It's okay that you feel that way. I kept saying, I'd be like, it's okay. And I'm like, I would feel very disregarded. Like if I wouldn't do that to my kid, like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I know what they start crying harder because they're like, I feel invalidated here. You're like, it's not okay on any level. Right. And so I was kind of doing what I've learned through parenting. And it was just like, I understand why you feel that. I can understand why you would feel scared. I can understand why that, I hear you.
Yeah.
And leaving it there. But yeah. Anyway, we can continue going.
No, that really sounds so, so healing for your inner child, that part of you to just have that validation. Like, yeah, that's the emotion you're having. And that's exactly the correct emotion because that's what you're having. And it's very valid. Yeah. Just quickly on those emotions of guilt and shame, I think we want to be careful to separate out the story from the emotion. If we believe that those emotions mean something bad about us, like we are flawed, we are doomed, we are unlovable, whatever they might be, then of course that's like run for the hills, because I do not want to go anywhere near that emotion, because that is not acceptable. I couldn't go on in life if that were true.
Right.
So instead, I become curious that if those emotions are really not about who we are or our value or our self-worth, but they're there for a different purpose, to make us aware of our relationship with someone else, our relationship with a situation or the world. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, what's coming to mind for me is this is like one of the really deep sessions I've done with this coach. Her name's Catherine Dixon. I just changed my entire life experience. And one was with my mom, and it was in regards to, I wanted as a kid to have a good relationship with my mom. Okay. Cause in the religion I was in, that was very like, like honor thy father and thy mother and all these stories about these beautiful relationships with parents and children. And I wanted that. Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's really hard to have that hunky dory thing when your mom is having paranoid delusions and blaming you for things that have never even entered into your psyche, and just a lot of stuff,
Absolutely.
And because I had that desire so strongly of I want to have a good relationship with her, I took on this immense responsibility that like it was all me. Like if I can just change or figure out how to manage this, she's innocent. There's nothing she can do about this. But if I can learn how to manage it better, then I can have this amazing relationship. Right. And so, wow. I mean, that session for me was like ripping a tree with all the roots out, not just a branch, it was like, wow, this is all over my life, and so, like I was saying, I'm still seeing, it's like, yeah, I discovered it, but I still see these little tendrils come out sometimes like this. And I think it's what's coming for me on that is like, it's a bit of that old pattern of like, if the relationship isn't right, there must be something I'm doing wrong. Right. I must be seeing this wrong, or I must not be being understanding enough, or maybe I'm judgmental, or maybe I think I'm too good for everyone, or, you know, like I can feel that pattern come in of like, this is all on me, you know, and that's a lot of the work that I was doing yesterday. And I'm still processing right now. It was just like less than 24 hours ago. But I think that it's the desire to have beautiful relationships, because I love deeply. And I think that childhood pattern of I can fix this to make it beautiful, you know, is coming in like that. And so it's like, if that's the belief, then guilt and shame are going to come in, because, well, apparently the fact that this relationship didn't work out must mean it's all you failed. You're messed up. There's something wrong with you, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at in processing all of that.
Yeah, and that's such great insight that you're gaining, like almost in real time. I mean, this all just like happened for you, and I think it's so courageous of you to be willing to talk about it. That's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, when we're little kids, we don't understand, or we don't have that sense of cause and effect, and so we have sort of no choice but to think that anything that happens bad is somehow our fault, or that we somehow have the power to fix mom, or if we're just good enough. It's kind of this like magical thinking.
Yeah.
And then when you add some intensely traumatic experiences and very painful emotions, and stuff doesn't go right, it's almost impossible not to leave with that deep ingrained emotional story that it is my fault. I am responsible for his feelings, and I really need him to be okay. Otherwise, there's something, you know, bad about me. I haven't like redeemed myself yet.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating to observe, because in so many areas of my life, you know, and I don't do that. So it's like, okay, pattern. I've noticed it's in these deepest, closest relationships. This is still like, I mean, I'm sure you deal with this all the time, but it's so fascinating to me how much comes from the emotional body, how many of these stories I can literally tell they are literally like stored in my emotional body versus a cognitive thought. And it really is the only way they can come to my conscious mind and become a cognitive thought is by allowing myself to just feel. Like I'm being very vulnerable, but like I could feel my inner child like having a tantrum inside of me yesterday afterwards. I was like, wow, she's really like scared and upset. And I just sat with it. I was like in my car in a parking lot, and I must have sat in the car for 20 minutes. I was like, I'm just gonna hear her and observe her. And, you know, so it's interesting to see, like, even when you know these things in some areas, or you've applied them in some areas, if it's like, to me, I always want to let it out. Or observe it and learn from my emotions. So yeah, they're sneaky sometimes. They're in there, and the only way to really discover them, in my opinion, is to like be still, be silent, not judge them, just allow them, let them out. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just imagining what it might be like for her to really somehow have the understanding or the validation that even if she is experiencing some intense guilt or shame or whatever the painful emotion might be, to just know that it's not about her, it's not about who she is, it's just really about the situation, and kind of redeeming that she still is good, she still is that child full of joy and hope, and she can be free of believing anything otherwise.
Yeah. I love that. As I was meditating this morning, I'm very intuitive, and, you know, just my belief is I feel like I have guides. That's the best way I can put it. I don't know what it is, but something along those lines. And I felt that presence so deeply, so close to me this morning as I was meditating. And I just heard, like, it always matters how you feel, you know, and the reason you've been so stressed lately is because you've just been questioning or judging or denying how you just feel. And if you would just honor how you just feel and just take that one moment at a time, like that matters. I just kept hearing that, like how you feel matters. That's been a lot of the lesson here. And it just reminds me of what you're saying there in terms of like, there's nothing wrong with the inner child. There's nothing wrong with little Tara for feeling that way, you know? So yeah, I do think that's some of the healing that I'm experiencing right now.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. It reminds me, as I've been going sort of through my own process about possibly a year ago or so, I was just driving in my car, and I don't even sort of know why any of this came up, but it was this sort of emotional memory that got ingrained in me somehow from a very young age, that I had to be the one to keep it all together. Like it was sort of like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, and there wasn't room for me to make a mistake. And if I did make a mistake, I was going to pay for it dearly, and I better fucking fix it too. And so as I was driving, I just sort of took a moment to validate the emotions going on, sort of, you know, for my own inner child, so to speak, and imagining that little 7-year-old boy, or however old I was, just feeling that realization that toxic story was reality, and that was the way that the world really was. And then to have those emotions of fear and pressure and stress and fear of shame, fear of being punished, or fear of failure for not keeping it together. And it was like, you know, more than humanly possible. And this all happened, like, it takes me longer to explain what happened than actually the moment. This just kind of all happened in real time. And I just started crying. I just had these like tears, just like darts, like shooting from my eyes. Like they're like these spring-loaded tears. And it was so simultaneously just like, it was okay to be sad. It was okay to feel disappointed. It was just, and also this relief, just this amazing relief, and just this contentment. Like I no longer had to carry that story, you know?
I had a similar one. Mine was released during a massage. My massage, she's amazing. A very intuitive woman, but she was doing massage, and same thing as she was working on my shoulders. I had that same, it was like, I just heard, nothing is your job. Like, it's not your job to help everybody or worry about all, like, you don't have to do anything. I just kept hearing, you don't have to worry about anything. Like, it's not your job. It's not your job. It's not your job. And I just bawling. I'm sure she gets that all the time, but I've had that similar, that release. It's unbelievable what it does to your nervous system. Right. I think so much of like an overactivated nervous system is wounded stories that haven't been addressed, just like you talked about, that keeps you on high alert. Because if you have to be put together all the time and have all the answers and not let anything slip, like you are forced into sympathetic dominance or heightened fight or flight, like all the time. You better, because if you drop, like something's going to happen. It's going to be all your fault, you know? And so, even from a health perspective, it's so important to release some of these stories, because that'll destroy your health. All of that. And, you know, for women, it might be, maybe they've been molested or raped or something along those lines, that hypervigilance. And it's like, it takes so many layers on traumas like that. So many layers. It takes so much time. So like lots of gentleness, but I have witnessed as women are going through their healing journeys on those kind of things, that intense, the stories that keep you in that intense mode, like this slowly letting down, slowly. I mean, I'm talking like at least a year. I mean, it's so gradual, but you see this like, it's safe again, you know? So anyway, thank you for sharing beautiful. That.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap, we're talking about how there's these emotions, and the example that Tara shared, these emotions of fear, some guilt, fear of her ex, I guess, becoming angry. And then her emotions that are sort of underneath that fear is that she might become numb or angry. And then underneath that, there might be some deep sadness, some blame, some guilt, and some shame. And so we've just been holding some space for those, you know, negative emotions that we want to fix or get rid of. And instead of getting rid of them or avoiding them, we're just being curious about them. And I'm just kind of curious in real time with you, Tara, what wisdom or what insight, what have you sort of, or what are you kind of like learning as we just look at these with curiosity? What good are they? Why do you even have these emotions? How might they be trying to help you?
Mm. Well, I think they're trying to help me heal, heal, because I look at like, okay, like, I don't know. I always get this vision of like this ideal society where we like haven't received all this programming and we live out in like a field and everyone's just full of love and the connection between humans is so genuine. And I know it's very like unrealistic because obviously all of the other emotions are part of the human experience. But when I look at like, it's more like I see this like vision of like, wow, what would life be like without programming? Like maybe we were the first humans that dropped in and there was so much less societal programming about how you should be and how you should think and rules and right, wrong and all this stuff. And I feel like that the emotions specifically, I mean, I was raised in a super dominating religion. So shame and guilt was like just literally ingrained from as early as I can remember is this is how you should be. And if you're not like that, or this is how you should feel. And if you don't feel like that, then you should feel bad about yourself and you should repent and say sorry until you get on board. Right. So it's like,
Right.
I have so much compassion for myself on these patterns because it's like, of course, but I think they're trying to help me. I look at them as like lower frequency, even though they're important. They're important. The whole spectrum is important. I do look at those feelings as like lower frequency emotions versus love, enlightenment, peace, and so they're just helping me see that something's unhealed there. So in a certain way, like I just see them as little healers. They're just like trying to, hey, they're these little indicator lights, it's like, hey, there's something going on here. And to me, the only way to access them is to listen to them. So I just went into this space of like not judging, like you said, like not trying to figure it all out, like of really genuinely just listening and just like, okay, I'm here with you. And some of this comes from like internal family systems too, because I really like that modality and therapy as well.
Love that stuff.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm just here. I'm just listening. I'm just curious. I'm not going to shut you down or try to tell you how you should be, and so yeah, that's how I see all these feelings. It's just like, kind of like, of course, I look at my life and I'm like, of course you're going to have those feelings come up. That's okay. And when they do come up, they're just like these little, like, they're like the little ticket into like, oh, look, there's some stuff you could heal here, and that's just, I think I love Kristen Neff's work too. She wrote Self-Compassion. I love that book. I use that in my coaching. I believe that self-compassion is the portal to changing your life. I don't think that you can actually truly heal things until you get into the energy of self-compassion. That's been my experience. So like, it's just, I feel like as they come up, I used to numb. I used to, like that would definitely be my protective, what do you call them? Shields. Oh yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Just didn't even have it. Avoidance, denial, numbness, like, or reciprocal anger, judgment, or like, and I've learned, I'm 40, I just turned 40. So it's like, I've learned and, through doing a lot of the work that I do too, it's just like, just listen to it. That's all. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to have the answers.
Yeah.
All I have to do is just listen to those things. And then like slowly they start to like reveal themselves, So, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of moments ago, you used the term, shaming. And I grew up in a religion. It sounds like yours was maybe a bit more intense than mine. However, it was sort of commonplace as well. And, when shame is such a powerful emotion that it can be used as emotional abuse. If you are able to convince somebody that their emotion of shame is evidence that there's something bad about them, who they are, then it's very, very powerful. And you can, religions and cults use this all of the time because it's such a powerful mind control tool,
Yes. Yeah. Even like I went to some personal development workshop thing one time. It was like one of those 3-day super intensive, we're going to break through your ego and like, but they were using those tactics so strongly that I literally, I didn't come back and I wrote a letter, but they would preemptively shame anybody who didn't finish the 3 days as if they just weren't ready to deal with their stuff. And then if somebody didn't, and I was noticing all these unhealthy patterns, I'm like, this is not not healthy. Not at all. And I was starting to feel that way. And then this one guy didn't come back. It's like, oh, everyone was so sad for him. He wasn't ready. And I texted him. I was like, can I call you later? I'm like, why didn't you come back? He's like, that shit is whack. Like that. And I was like, that's what I thought. But what were they doing? Oh, he just wasn't ready. We feel sorry for him, which then makes everybody else, I don't want to be that person, So yeah, I've seen that happen. And like, even quote unquote personal development things where they're using shame is definitely used as a mind control tactic.
And some of those can be gateways to actually, recruit people into cults or different groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to zoom in on that because it sounds like there was something more than just your logical brain that was telling you that shit's kind of fucked up here to make you decide to take action and to leave.
Yeah.
What emotions and what emotional wisdom do you think gave you clarity to say, you know what, I've seen enough of this and I know that I need to walk away now?
And for context, I mean, my whole life was revolved around, I didn't know anyone and I'm not going to say what religion it is, but most people can probably gather, but it was, in my opinion, is a cult. I used to be so offended by that when people would say that. And I'm like, looking at it now, I'm like, nah. Yeah. And so my whole life, I didn't know anyone who wasn't in this religion. I had a very rich social life and like, it was my whole life was wrapped around it. Right. And what the emotions I felt were confusion. I started just little things. And for so long I had been so brainwashed to just be like, well, I don't know. I shouldn't question what, the Lord said, all this kind of stuff. And so I would just dismiss things. And it actually wasn't until I got healthy, when I started getting healthier, I started questioning. I was like, my brain kind of came on lock. And so I started to question things. And so the emotions I felt were confusion. I'm like, this is not adding up, which then led me into, because like what they would say is that you should never look up anything about that anyone else says about this religion, or Satan will deceive you. Right. So they just hold you in with that. And so can you imagine going to buy a car from like Ford and they're like, don't look up what anybody says except us. What was the first thing you would do? Is like, go look up what everybody else has to say, but that they had us with that Satan will trick you, and when you're indoctrinated with this, since you're like, can talk, it's so in there. So I felt confused, and I truly just wanted clarity. And so I finally, it took me 3 weeks after I was 33 at the time. It took me 3 weeks. I was like, I'm never going back. It was hard data. It was like undeniable, like proof and evidence that it was lies and manipulation. But I'd say that the emotion I felt was, can you consider confused? That's an emotion, right? Yeah.
I love confusion is one of my favorite emotions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. I just wanted clarity. I was like, this is just not making sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to think confusion was a problem, or it was a bad thing, because if you're confused, that means that you don't know what's going on, and that's weakness, that's being vulnerable. Right. So you need to work double time to not be confused. However, if you think of it as an emotion, it's very powerful to give you some insight. It's like, hey, stuff doesn't add up, and I may not know exactly why right now, but I'm picking up that things are not adding up, and that's important.
Yeah, it's just accepting. It was such a huge moment with myself to, instead of chronically abandoning myself. It would be like on the just split second of, that doesn't make sense. Oh, well, whatever. That doesn't make sense. Oh, well, whatever. Like that was the pattern. Yeah. So for me to like to have that little like longer moment of myself of what, I'm actually not okay with that not making sense. Like that doesn't make sense, and I'm owning that, versus that doesn't make sense, whatever. That was huge. And that was that like accepting confusion, owning confusion was huge. It changed my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. I'm glad that you also had the same experience, because once I tapped into confusion as just an emotion that's okay. And it sounds so paradoxical, but you can actually like rest in confusion, because you're going to figure stuff out eventually. But you can just say, hey, my emotions are telling me that I don't know enough right now. So
Yeah.
I need more time. I
Yeah.
need to talk to somebody else.
Right.
I need to not make any decisions right now, or I need to protect
Right.
myself right now until stuff becomes clear.
And confusion is like, it's a gift too. It's just alerting it, just like every other emotion. It's just alerting you that something's off. And I love that you're talking about like just allowing yourself to sit in confusion, right? Because it's an uncomfortable space to be, and
Right.
it can at least for me, it's like I don't want to feel like that, so I want to like hurry and have it. But it's like the more I feel like I can sit with it and be patient with it and like not judge myself. That was a lot of what I've been doing the last couple of weeks with this whole breakup thing. Is just like having conversation, with seeking clarity. But like, one of my friends I was discussing the whole thing with, like, I'm like, just let me know if you don't want to hear about this anymore. Cause it's probably like, and I'm like, I have to honor my process here. And I need a little more time. I just need a little more time to like kind of see how I feel here. And then I got my clarity, but I think it can be tempting to just want to get out of confusion really quick. And I think I love that you highlighted that it's okay and it's important to like just sit in it and wait. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kind of led parallel lives in a weird kind of way. And it's exciting to see these similarities and the same conclusions that we've come to. By the way, on the concept of time, you said something else, which was a huge epiphany for me. You said, I need a little bit more time. And I like to share with my patients this sort of magic trick that you can actually create time. You simply say the magic words, I need more time. And voila, there's more time.
I love that. Yeah.
And in 99% of situations, you can have more time and you can take whatever time you need in order to do what needs to be done or figure things out,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's nothing more stressful than pressuring yourself into something that you're not ready to do. I mean, even in the healing world, we talk a lot about, like more of the, and, I do a lot of plant medicines and things like that. And it's always like, if you're not ready to deal with that, that's okay. There's always this kind of approach. It's just like, it's okay if you're not ready. It's okay. And I mean, I don't know about you, but trying to force heal something doesn't really work super well. It's like you have to be open. You have to like, it's like an energetic opening to it. When you're ready, it will come. So yeah, it's important to be patient and kind and give ourselves that. And I love that. You could magically create more time just by saying you need more time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then automatically you no longer are believing the story that I need to figure this out by this deadline. I need to be subjugate to this timeline or whatever. And you sort of take a little bit of your human dignity back.
Yeah. Well, this is shamed. What you're talking about is so shamed. Like, I can't believe how many clients I get that say, like, practically everyone, they'll say, I'm such a procrastinator with so much shame around it. Right. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I'll just put things off and put things off and put things off. And I'm like, well, I know, but like, it's to me, like, that sounds so mean. It's just like, that's not even just labeling yourself with I am a procrastinator is like self-abuse, in my opinion,
Right.
and completely skimming the surface on what's actually going on, And so it's like, we live in this world where it's like, the more your GSD factor has to be really high, your get shit done factor, like how quickly you crank out stuff, and it's shamed. It's like, whoa, it took me, I mean, what do we hear? We hear these amazing stories of, I made $1 million in 2 months and in my first year of entrepreneurship. And it's like, wow, like we glorify how quickly we can make things happen. And I love that you're talking about kind of glorifying the beauty of allowing things to happen, giving yourself space, like giving permission to be able to have time to process things. Because I don't know about you, but the most beautiful evolutions in my life have all come on a really natural, unforced basis. Yeah.
Right. And Tara walks the walk too, because before the podcast recording today, I'm like the guy that's like always on time and my life like runs on a pretty strict schedule. But I had to send her a message that I might be having to start a little bit late. And I had some, strong emotion of fear that she was, going to be angry or whatever. And she, didn't make a big deal about anything. She was so kind.
Yeah, I I'm not one of those people that gets upset by any late net. I'm like, whatever, I'll just check emails or something. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. If anybody out there is interested in religion, cults, things like that, definitely reach out because that's a really big fascination of mine as well. I came from kind of a mainstream religion, like nothing too crazy. However, there's just a lot to unpack there. Even when it's just sort of like a normal religion, there's still psychological tricks and things going on beneath the surface. And
Oh yes.
that the topic of how people can sort of use our emotions to their advantage for their purposes, it's just so ubiquitous.
Yeah. And then once you learn all of that, then you have to learn to, I feel like I've been on the path of learning to not stand for that kind of behavior, but also to give compassion and humanity to people who have been like entrapped into that, because like they were born into it too. And they're just in this like program cycle. And so a lot of my work, cause there was so much anger when you find out you've been like deceived and manipulated for 33 years, your entire life, there was a lot of anger that had to be processed there. And I admit still sometimes I'll see stuff and I'm like, that is so freaking messed up. Like, but then it's like, I have to separate the behavior. I'm like, yes, I don't stand for that kind of behavior. That is not in alignment with me at all. And having compassion on the people who are in that kind of behavior, right? It's a journey. Anybody who's been through religious trauma knows what I'm talking about. Ooh, it is a journey.
Absolutely. And that's like a whole other conversation we could have because there's so much there. I could talk for hours about it myself. I did want to ask you though, because you mentioned that you went through this weight loss episode through your life. And I was curious what kind of emotions you had before, during, and after that time, and how any of your emotions maybe were hindering you from that and then helped you to get where you're at today.
Okay, let's see. How do I sum up this? Okay. Okay, so before, so I was always like just kind of chubby, bigger, you know what I mean? Growing up, I wasn't like morbidly obese, but I was bigger. And then I got married and I was kind of, somewhat normal weight in college. And then I got married, had 4 kids. And after my 4th kid, I was the biggest I had ever been. I'm running full marathons, 26-mile marathons. And I'm like, dude, what is going on with me? And then I'll try to wrap up like the craziest trauma of my life, like in a very short amount of time. I found out that my ex-husband had been addicted to pornography our entire marriage. And in the religion that I was in, that was super bad. And I had done no personal work. And so the emotions I felt were humiliation. I felt so much humiliation. It was really interesting, right? It kind of goes in the same pattern we were talking about in the beginning of this episode, but I felt I was humiliated. I was humiliated that I didn't know that like I thought our relationship was one way and he had this whole thing going on and I was just in the dark. Like I felt humiliated. I felt sad. And then it also kind of went into these codependent responsible. Well, if I was just more beautiful and fit, then he wouldn't have to do that, right? So these patterns were really entrenched back then, bad. And then so that I've shared openly many times. That's what catapulted my whole fitness journey, was deep feelings of inadequacy. I got to save my marriage. I got to be good enough, and like all of this just toxic crap, right? And as I, I think everything there's so much beauty and complexity and like trauma and dark times, because there was so much goodness that happened and so much wisdom and positive things too. But as I went through that journey, it was very eye-opening that there were so many things in our marriage that were so incredibly unhealthy that had all been masked under little people pleaser Tara, right? Like nothing bothers me. Okay, I'll just completely lose my voice and whatever, And so anyway, we ended up getting divorced, and then I had to go on a huge healing journey after that. And so grateful for all of it, right? Because like I said, like I can relate to a lot of people, and the not enough. I'm not, I've got to look better so I can be enough and be lovable and valuable in society and all this untrue garbage. And then in the next healing phase of my journey, and kudos to Catherine Dixon, who's helped me a lot with this and a lot of my own work and other coaches and mentors. And, I've gone ham, but there was I guess, not enoughness, unlovable, unworthy, all of that is what started me and what really pulled me out of that into a place of like, I mean, I personally feel, I don't mean this in an egoic way, but I personally feel that I have a very unique relationship with my body that I do not see a lot of people have, in terms of like, I have a real, like, it is like my best friend, like so grateful, like all of these little beings, all of these little cells and microorganisms in my gut, and all of the systems, my immune system, my cardiovascular system, my muscles, my bones. Like, I'm like, this thing is freaking amazing. And I talk to it now. I'm like, thank you. In my meditations in the morning, I'm like, thank you for everything you're doing. Is there anything you need? Water, fish oil. Okay, cool. And I just play with it, but it's like developed this very beautiful, loving relationship with my body without pressure. I don't care anymore. And I guess what, if I had to identify the core emotion under that whole second phase of my journey with health and relationship with my body, it's love, peace, just stillness, being awareness, like just being with me, like taking all the pressure off and coming in here. So in the beginning of that journey, it was everything was outside of me. Even when I was overweight, it was just, everything was outside of me. It was just, I'm trying to keep up with everything I'm supposed to do and supposed to be. And then as on my healing journey, it all started coming from inside. It was just like, just stillness, peace, calm, listening, awareness, love, compassion, versus hell, torture, torment, pressure, so yeah.
No, that's really insightful. That idea of your body being your best friend and having this sort of special relationship with it. That's
so grateful.
Amazing emotions of like love and peace, and that sincere gratitude is awesome.
Yeah. Bodies are freaking amazing. And when you do it for a living, it's like, it's like the ocean. It's like, to me, the body's similar to like somebody who explores the ocean. It's just like, wow, like everything else is just endless learning and exploring. When you see the body like that and everything it's doing, you real quickly start to let go. It's like, oh my gosh, no. It doesn't matter what you look like. It's like, I see you for who you are. And it's a good place to be. And it's been a journey. It's taken many years to get there. We're pushing a decade now. So it's a slow step-by-step journey.
Awesome. You seem like you're in such a great place now.
Thanks.
And considering everything that you went through and every place you came from, and it's just really inspiring. And I'm sure people listening or watching can just sort of feel what I'm feeling, which is just this joy, this energy, this sort of positive spark, and it's almost contagious. Like I'm
Thanks.
like, I want what she has. Give me some of that.
It's really, I think it's part of my nature. I've always been kind of, I don't know, whatever the word is, spazzy or excited. I'm a easily excited person, but so much of that energy, I think, and I feel that too. Like I feel, and it's a really good feeling to feel that in yourself. And it's all come from centering and like just being with me and wanting what's best for me and showing up for me. Like yesterday, that was hard. That was so hard for me. Like, as you can see, there's still some unhealed stories and wounded inner child stuff. And it was so hard but I knew I needed to for me. It was like, this is like, I show up for you. You matter. How you feel matters, So sometimes it's really hard, but that's what breeds that peace. Because guess what? If 2 years from now I was married to that guy and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I knew this was wrong from the beginning. Like, that sucks. Right. And so it's been such a journey of like, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, just like truly wanting what's best for myself has led to such a beautiful place.
And simply by making me aware of the emotions that you are going through right now and that you've been going through recently, it gives you so much more depth to me. You seem so much more real, if that's possible. You're not just some person who has like all of her shit together.
Yeah, no.
And it's very relatable, and it just like automatically fires up those like empathy neurons, and it feels like, a real connection that matters, rather than just sort of go checking the boxes and trying to make sure that we're doing everything right.
Yeah, I think that's why it's really cool how you're doing this podcast, because it allows us to share our humanity, And I think if we could all do a little less of the perfect projection and just be real about stuff, like so much healing is available to everyone who partakes of that, because we can all relate. We all have stuff going on, and if we're all pretending like we don't, it's very isolating and lonely when you think you're the only one. So I love how you're doing this, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about my shit on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm so thankful. And speaking of loneliness, and I've shared this before, that's the reason that I'm here with you right now. I had this painful emotion of loneliness that I barely became aware of a few years ago. And once I tuned into that and learned from it, it helped to teach me that I wanted to have a different kind of connection and relationship with other people that was missing from my life. And so that fueled my passion to do what I'm doing now. And so I'm very, very deeply grateful for the loneliness.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's that self-loving stuff I'm talking. It's like, I'm noticing my feelings and I'm going to show up for you. I love it. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like anybody to know? What's going on with you now? Any events or anything coming up?
I do have a retreat coming up in Maui, May 10th through 14th. Higher retreats, mindset. So my coaching's all deep mindset work and health. And so that's what we're doing out in Maui, is diving deep into our subconscious and pulling out some stuff and also having a lot of fun. So the details for that are on my website, taragarrison.com. Just go to event, and let's see. I think that's pretty much it. If you guys want to follow me on social media, it's just Coach Tara Garrison across the board, and you'll find out more than you would ever want to know on Instagram. Instagram's kind of like my main hub, and TikTok are also pretty big. And I do a lot of workout stuff on TikTok. So if that's what people want, like, TikTok is the place to go.
Sweet. And Tara has 1 R and Garrison has 2 R's.
Yeah. And of course, my Inside Out Health podcast that you were on. So make sure you guys check out that.
Check it out for sure. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is Dr. Alex Wills with Give a F Actually. Make sure to check us out on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the merch store. RadicalEmotionalAcceptance.com. Bye.
Bye.